Hi guys, Sunday the 23rd of August, welcome to my live. I had to actually remind myself, just at a moment when I just was about to press the live, I went, oh, what's the date? And in fact, that's been happening over the last couple of days actually. I've been having to consciously work it out in my head. A couple of times when I've taken Willow for a walk and thought about doing my, I call my Mandy's morning musings. The last couple of days again, I've gone, hang on, what's the date? And I'll be doing this, I'll be looking at my fingers, working out a date I actually remember, and then working sort of forward. So yeah, there's something going on, but anyway. So welcome. For those who are joining now and about to join, hi Karen, thank you for your absolute, by the way, support and loyalty and commitment. You know, you're second to none, so thank you. So as always, my lives connect to courage in some way, shape or form, in its many forms. And I don't know whether, for those of you who would have possibly been on or listened to one of my lives a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that I was reflecting on was a person I was coaching, and it was a relatively new person to the coaching process. And I recall that they got quite angry with me and in our coaching session, and really, were sort of saying that they weren't getting what they felt they wanted from me. They were quite angry. They almost they said it in not so many words, they wanted me to almost, hi Grenville, they wanted me to almost fix things for them. And I made it quite clear to them that, that's not what I'm about, that's not what coaching is about. And what I did at the time was, my gut feeling for a little while, I'd had a number of gut feelings about this coaching. And so I challenged them on what I call sabotaging the relationship. I actually said to them, I think that the way they were going about stuff and some of the actions they had or hadn't taken really gave me this gut feeling that what they were trying to do was sabotage our coaching relationship. And that, at the time, didn't land very well, to put it mildly. And it was one of those moments, guys, where they don't happen that often, but this was one of them. And literally, it was right at the end of the call. And it wasn't long before I had another coaching client. I'm very clear about, my timing, needing the space. There's no way I'm going to go over on a call when I've got somebody else, due, and I need my time between to get myself in a good place. So it was where it was, and we sort of ended that call. And I did afterwards, I think I'd emailed them at some point. And even though I felt what I said to them was absolutely right from my gut feeling point of view, I started to wonder if this person was resourceful enough, if I'm honest, to carry on with the coaching. And it's a real dichotomy. I know, we come from a place as coaches of saying everyone is creative and resourceful and whole. And yet at the same time, I just wasn't 100% sure that they had enough, whether it be resilience or enough ability to be able to dig deep, maybe whether actually that there was enough there for me to be able to continue to challenge in the way I was. So maybe on some level I was also questioning whether I perhaps need to back off or be a bit easier. I think, if I'm honest, there was an element of me starting to think, actually, is this coaching relationship right? Is that going to work for us? So there was all sorts of processing going on. But what I also really knew, without a doubt, was that when in that last sort of previous coaching session, when the person got really angry, it appeared probably on the face of it like they were being angry with me. And they were saying certain things to me which they weren't happy with in relation to what I wasn't doing for them. But I knew absolutely from other things they'd shared that what was really going on was they were really angry with themselves. they were frustrated and annoyed with themselves for not being able to do certain things they said they want to do, put certain things in place. And so I was aware, you know, I was getting some of that. Now, we were supposed to actually, we had a week, what I call a week off, because I'd do 3 weeks coaching, 1 week off. And the following week was actually going to be our week off anyway. And then the following week, which would have been last week, they basically had emailed me saying, I've really taken a serious look at how they felt at the time, how they responded and so on. And what they really realised was that they absolutely needed to give themselves time to take some serious look at themselves, digging deep. And so they actually decided to take some days out away, which they have said to me before, you know, they don't do that very often. They're not really good at giving themselves time. And so I could absolutely see that was right for them in that given moment. And it was supposed to be the week where we would have our next coaching session. So I was like, yeah, fine, no problem. So I actually ended up moving it to the following week, which happened to be this week. So this week, when we then came to our coaching session, this was the first time since we'd had that interaction I'm describing. And what they shared was, they said they'd taken a hard look at themselves, been quite honest about their actions. They realised they couldn't carry on in the way they were if they weren't seriously looking after themselves and taking actions to make that happen, you know, not just verbalising it, but then their actions say something very different. And so what they'd also done was they really had considered taking some serious key actions to move themselves forward since we'd had our last session. And they talked about taking more time out from, they do another type of job which takes a lot of energy and hours from them. And they'd finally made the decision to go back to this other organisation, hi Jack, and take a day off from that. But they'd asked the organisation if they could go from 4 days to sort of 3 days. And they'd been mulling over this for a while. They were really concerned that the person or the organisation was going to turn around and go, no, forget it, you know, it ain't going to happen. But actually they got to a point where they knew it had to happen. Well, it had to happen, or i.e. they were going to end up burning out. They couldn't carry on like that. And they were really surprised that in fact the organisation said, yes, that's fine. They said they valued this person and what they had to offer. And what that meant was, by taking the courage to take that step, it's given this person now another day in their week where they can work on their own business. The other thing they did was they actually spoke to a friend of theirs who they felt wasn't really respecting them and their time. And so they said what they felt, and then they came off the phone with this person and they said normally, previously, they would have within minutes probably gone back to this person and tried to make it okay. But they knew that they were right in what they said, and they just left it for a couple of hours. And they then turned around and said, actually, this person came back to them within a couple of hours saying, yeah, I agree, accept what you're saying, totally respect that, and, you know, we're going to sort of do something different. And so what came from that was they actually were really respecting their own boundaries. Therefore, because the person recognised and acknowledged that they were important to them, they actually therefore, you know, were saying, yeah, we respect your boundaries. Now, going back, for me at the time, don't get me wrong, just because I challenged them about sabotaging, you know, our coaching relationship, it isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world to have those conversations with people, but I knew that it was right, that was what my gut feeling was saying. And so I challenged them at the time. I named, you know, what I'd call the elephant in the room. And actually, what happened from that was that person took some time and really reflected, you know, very honestly on how they were feeling, what was going on for them. And so in turn, what's happened is they've actually now come back, you know, for their next coaching session, and it's also made a difference for them in terms of their honesty about making, you know, taking actions to shift, you know, what needs to be done for them in their own lives. They also said, interestingly, that, and they actually, you know, verbalised this to me. They said that they felt at the time that maybe they were testing me a little bit in terms of the coaching relationship to see whether I would just not be able to deal with it or cope with it and just sort of, you know, reject them. They use that word, let them go in some way. And it's interesting because we're all different, and, you know, whatever type of relationship we're in where we're trying to be honest, but that also takes being vulnerable with other people if we're going to try and be truly honest. At times, for some people, that may mean that they test it a little bit, or they push things, or they do or say things to see how somebody's going to respond. Not everybody does that, but some people do, for all sorts of reasons. And so this person recognised that's what they were doing. But equally, they also turned around and went, okay, and because you did respond in the way you did, and you were really strong and firm about that, and this enabled me to look at my own boundaries, then, you know, it helped them, it worked for them. So that was a real big sort of experience, actually, a big piece for me in my work. Another example I want to share with you this week about courage is actually around courage to face loss. And I think some of you may be aware, I've mentioned previously that I've done a number of things since we went into actual, you know, lockdown in March. There were a number of things that I put in place that were what I call my daily, weekly routines, things that were going to keep me grounded. And amongst those, one of them was writing. I just call it a journal to my daughter and my mum. But the piece about that, for those of you who don't know, is that my mum died about 20 years ago or so. And so the one piece I've always sort of felt within me that I would have liked to have been different, but obviously it's just circumstance, is I always really loved the idea that I'd be in conversation with my mum if she was alive, and my daughter would be with us. And I imagine my mum saying things like, oh, you know, to my daughter, oh, when Mandy was younger, she did this or she did that, or she reacted in this way. And having that level of narrative, personal story from my mum about me that offers something very different. And so that's the piece, if you like, that I've often felt a little bit sort of sad about inside. And so when we went to lockdown, can't explain too really consciously about why, but I just felt, I knew it felt right. So what I did was I was writing a journal, and when I say a journal, what I'd do is each day I'd have one page or a couple of pages that would go, Dear Mum, and then I'd have another page or a couple of pages on the same day, directly after actually I'd write it, that would be Dear Kaylee's my daughter. And what I felt was, it really enabled me to almost imagine they were in the room together. And it was as if they were hearing my reflections. You know, this is me in my own mind. I'm not saying obviously they did. But in a way, it felt like I was connecting them both in a way that I will never really have, because obviously that's not reality of my mum dead. But I really felt that. And actually, the one thing that has sort of, it's been a bit of a, I'd go, as if it's a bit out of the blue or left field or a bit of a surprise, is in the lockdown, I really started to notice being present to some of these sort of feelings and emotions, and particularly around loss. And as I said, bearing in mind that my mum died, 20 years ago, it was in very, what I call quite shocking, sudden circumstance. And what I mean by that is that it was literally, one minute we thought she was fine and okay, she was only early 50s, and then within literally 4 or 5 weeks she died, from having a diagnosis to people, to the hospital saying she'll be fine, she's young enough, we can give her treatment. And it just literally went really fast and downhill from there on. And so being in this lockdown at the time as well, really sort of almost interestingly, although I didn't really see it like this at first, I think it forced me into having to be with stuff and being myself and whatever else was, coming up in the world, sort of generally. And so it feels like, really strange in some ways, but it feels like I've actually been able to revisit, you know, not even in, I would call it a really conscious way, because I've been writing this journal, and to be honest, I thought earlier on I'm actually going to reread it back through and see maybe what that sort of brings for me, whereas at the moment I haven't actually done that, but I think I'm going to do that. And so what happened from that point was I was thinking a bit more then about courage and loss and what that means. And I was looking up some articles and just Googling, and as you do on the internet and so on. And I found actually an article, and it's called Mustering the Courage to Mourn. And I really, I was just reading it, I got into it, I thought, you know what, this is really great stuff. And so the more I read it and the more I looked at it, I actually decided, you know what, this is felt so real, so well written, so pertinent to what this person was expressing, that I thought, well, I'm going to share some of this. And so that's what I'm going to do now. It's actually by a guy called Alan Wolfelt, as in Wolfelt. And he works for the Centre for Loss and Life Transition. And he's American. But yeah, if you sort of look him up, then you definitely, you know, see a lot of the other stuff he's done. He's done a lot of other articles around loss and grief, you know, with so many other things generally, and then with COVID and with teenagers and so forth. Some really good stuff. So I'm going to read you a couple of things that he shared, because I felt they were really lovely. So it starts with, loss brings uninvited pain into our lives. In opening to the presence of the pain of your loss, in acknowledging the inevitability of the pain, in being willing to gently embrace the pain, you demonstrate the courage to honour the pain. And I just, you know, the whole piece about honouring, I think that's, wow. You know, almost honouring and respecting pain, as opposed to our natural inclination as human beings, I think, is to try and, you know, push it away, almost go, no, this is not okay, I don't like feeling this way, it's not good stuff. And it reminded me a little bit of, I said the other day, for some of you who follow my other stuff on my Facebook page, I was offering supervision to somebody who I've known for a long time, a practitioner, another therapist. And she actually has been reading the book The Body Keeps the Score, and she's got a lot of learning from it. One of the things that came out for her was a quote by Rumi, which I feel sort of resonates with this sense of embracing the pain and honouring it at the same time. And I'm going to read it to you again, and it says, "This being human is a guest house. Every morning is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Treat each guest honourably. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." I just think the notion of treating each, you know, each part of human experience that comes into our life, and to treat it honourably, as if all of those pieces, even the things that we might try and push away and not want, or, you know, naturally feel as a human being uncomfortable with, the idea of treating them, you know, sort of honourably, I think just has something else to offer, which is really quite beautiful, is actually the word I would say out loud right now. And it goes on in the article Mustering the Courage to Mourn. It says, "Honouring means recognising the value of and respecting. It is not instinctive to see grief and the need to openly mourn as something to honour. Yet, the capacity to love requires the necessity to mourn. To honour your grief is not self-destructive or harmful, it is courageous and life-giving. Again, I think there's really some real lovely insight in there. It says the word express literally means to press or squeeze out, to make known and reveal. Self-expression can change you in the way you perceive and experience your world. Transforming your thoughts and feelings into words gives them meaning and shape. Your willingness to honestly affirm your need to mourn will help you survive this difficult time in your life. Your spiritual purpose is not to repress or overindulge your emotions, but rather to allow them so fully that they move through you. And in a way, I felt like writing the journal I was talking about to my mum and my daughter, I feel like that's in a way perhaps what I have been doing, is I've been, bringing those my thoughts and reflections to life, but through the word, on paper. And it goes on to say, the pain of grief will keep trying to get your attention until you unleash your courage to gently and in small doses open to its presence. The alternative, denying or suppressing your pain, is in fact more painful. If you do not honour your grief by acknowledging it, it will accumulate and fester. So you must ask yourself, how will I host this loss? What do I intend to do with this pain? Will I befriend it, or will I make it my enemy? I've learned the pain that surrounds the closed heart of grief is the pain of living against yourself, the pain of denying how the loss changes you, the pain of feeling alone and isolated, unable to openly mourn, unable to love and be loved by those around you. Instead of dying while you are alive, you can choose to allow yourself to remain open to the pain, which in large part honours the love you feel for the person who has died. After all, love and grief are two sides of the same precious coin. As an ancient Hebrew sage observed, if you want life, you must experience suffering. Paradoxically, it is the very act of mustering the courage to move towards the pain that ultimately leads to healing. And then it goes on to say, in terms of, it talks about this idea of taking grief's hand, and it says, if someone you've given love to and received love from has died, then you're grieving. You are bereaved, which literally means you've been torn apart. You're beginning or in the midst of a journey that is painful, can often be lonely and naturally frightening. But among what you may need is also the courage to grieve and mourn in a culture that doesn't always invite you to feel safe to do so. I think it's interesting. I think it's a whole other conversation in lots of ways, but I think certain cultures seem to be a lot more open to really embracing and considering the aspect of death as a part of life, as a celebration of somebody's life, rather than this is how descriptive it must be, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you must only show emotion for a certain amount of time and then you've got to shut it down. And is it also, so Kelly's just sharing there, she says, so true, we know too well, grief is the price we pay for love. The journey of grief is a lonely one. I totally agree with you, Kelly. But at the same time, I think that if we can connect with other people who may have, it may resonate with them in terms of what you're experiencing. I'm not saying everybody experiences the same thing, but I think on some level it can be quite important to be able to connect with others who may be able to experience that and not, I think that's the piece, allow you to feel what you're feeling and be with it without almost telling you, well, now you need to feel this now. Do you know what I mean? Now you need to move on. Now you need to get over it. All those types of crass comments. And it goes on to talk about, in this article, it says, I encourage you to take grief's hand and let it lead you towards the light. You may not see the light at first, but forge ahead with courage and with the faith that the light of hope and happiness does exist. But it's important to feel the pain, the sorrow, the sadness, the disbelief, the agony, the heartbreak, the fear, anxiety and loneliness as much as you can. This may seem odd, as these emotions could well be the ones you most want to avoid. You might fall into the common thinking of our society that denying these feelings will make them go away. You might have the urge to keep your chin up and stay busy and wait to get over your grief. I know, and I'm not saying this is the wrong way of doing things either, but I know that, I'm sure many of you know, my work means an awful lot to me, always has done, and I do think that my work in a lot of ways kept me busy and kept me really sane, particularly, when Mum died, probably when Dad did as well. But there comes a point where I think you can almost invest your focus and your thoughts so much in the work that you don't necessarily give the time and the processing that may be required. That absolutely, Karen's just saying there, it's not just grief of adults, it's also grief in children. Absolutely, I think that's a massive part to play. In a lot of ways, to be honest with you, I personally think that children are often a lot more open to ask the curious questions, to want to know more, to try and understand, what it means, this loss, this losing, this grief, why these people are around them are, responding in certain ways, where the person's gone that they once knew. And I think that often, this is certainly, I had this experience, and I may have shared this before, so, if you've heard it before, forgive me, but it feels quite important to say, my granddad, which was my mum's dad, we spent, twice a week, we spent hours at their house in their company, and I remember when he died, I think I'd have to really, my mum and dad are dead now, so it's hard to speak to people who, really know the detail. My gut feeling is I think I would have been about at least 8 or 9. Hi, Chris. And I remember saying to my mum, I remember being very clear that I wanted to go to the funeral. And I remember my mum turning around and saying, she said no. She didn't feel it was, appropriate for all sorts of reasons, for a child to go to his funeral, and so I didn't. But I remember feeling really angry, actually, really angry for a long time that she wouldn't let me do that. And I felt like it was really interesting. I felt like some piece of me, it was like I'd not been allowed, to mourn somebody who was so absolutely vital and key to me. Now, I'm not sharing this with you because I'm not knocking my mum for that. I'm just saying that I think when adults make those decisions, obviously they make that based on what they think at the time, what their own experiences are. But fundamentally, if I'm honest, I actually think that when adults don't always let the children attend a funeral, I think sometimes, in fact, I think a lot of the time, I think it's because deep down, the adults don't really want to have to deal with and face their own feelings of emotion, their own upset. So they're almost saying, I'm trying to protect you, the young person, the child. Actually, I think what they're really trying to do is trying to shut their own, feelings off, their own pain. They don't want this child to see them upset. And yet, a part of me is like, well, go on, Bennett, like, what better time, what more appropriate time in the world to be showing emotion to a young person, to your child, to show you're upset and you're crying, to show how normal and real that is, than at a time where you've lost somebody who you loved and was really important to you. So totally with you, Karen. I think that's vital, whole piece around how children experience grief and process that, and how adults actually can, I believe, enable young people often in more, I think, better ways, shall I say, than perhaps what is often enabled for young people as well. And so just sort of finishing the end of this sort of piece as well that I was reading around this grief, and it says, may seem odd as the emotions could well be the ones you want to avoid. I mentioned about keeping your chin up, staying busy, which is where we was at, getting over your grief. And then it says, but yet ironically, the only way to help these hard feelings pass, it's interesting, is to wade in the muck of them. I love that phrase, the muck of them. To get in and get dirty. Grief isn't clean or tidy or convenient, yet feeling it and expressing it is the only way to feel whole once again. Unresolved grief can leave you feeling stuck or empty. Your ability to engage in life could be inhibited and you might feel like you've shut down. Instead, and it might sound a bit weird this sort of wording, but choose grief. And as you walk with your grief, actively mourn. Cry when you need to. Call a friend when you feel overwhelmed. Join a support group. Express yourself through writing, music, dance, sports. But by taking action, you eventually begin to integrate. It doesn't say get rid of or it goes away. Integrate the death of your loved one into your life. In exchange, over time, you may begin to find hope and courage and the desire to live a rewarding, fulfilling life. And in a sense, what I think it becomes when you begin to accept some of that on some level is you almost begin to want to live a more fulfilling life for that person in a way, you know, because you want to feel like, you know, that their life and your life is of worth. So you want that as well in the same way. And no, Kelly's saying, yeah, still wading, and it's always there. Totally agree with you. Doesn't, you know, go away. Sometimes it just feels, I think some days, some weeks, some months, it can be really, really in your face, really present, can be over there, the periphery somewhere. But I'm totally with you. You know, once you've, I think it's like anything in life, once you've had some level of experience, you know, that doesn't just disappear and go away. It becomes a, you know, literally I'm doing this, becomes a part of you and your experience and your psyche, your, you know, your memories and so on. And it goes on to say, while walking with grief, remember two important things. Grief and mourning have no timeline. Your grief's journey is unique and you will take as little or as much time as needed, depending on the unique circumstances of your loss. And then secondly, taking breaks along the way is needed and necessary. Grief is not something you can do all at once. Feeling so many feelings often leads to overwhelm. Instead, taking doses and mourn in bits and pieces. And then it says, grief may never leave your side, but it will allow you to let go and venture forth on your own more and more as days, weeks, months and years pass. Tap into your innate courage and accept the hand held out by grief. And there's actually a lot more about that article, to be honest with you, but no, you haven't got all night. So, but the wonderful thing about that is there's so much, I think, so much loveliness and beauty and wisdom and content in that I definitely think I'll probably sort of utilise and process a little bit more of what else was in there and share that at another point. So what I'd like to do now, guys, is share. I've actually got two of my poems. Hi Rachel, got two of my poems, which I'm going to share with you. I know most of you who've sort of been on my live before will be aware that I normally share at least one poem or so of my own I've written. I've got two today. So one is called The Gift. So I'm going to read that to you. The Gift. It's a gift. It sucks. It's crap. Anger isn't good for you. I want to be angry. I'm not going to be here to see him grow up, to get old. You need someone on your side. Someone to tell. I am alone with this. And I'm going to die alone. Tell me this doesn't make us friends, you know? I know. I want the person back I met. I'm not that person anymore. They're not that person anymore. I've changed, but you haven't. I can change. We can change. Do you want to change? I've already changed. You need me. You need me more than I need you. I need you more than I need me. Cancer's a gift. It opens your mind to what's real and important. To live your life and not care so much. To care about the things that really matter. Cancer's a load, a weight, a heavy burden. It eats away inside and I lose myself bit by bit. What's the gift? And my second poem is called Pick Me Up. Pick me up. Okay, my love, where shall we go? Anywhere you want to take me. You need to tell me. Let's just have this day. I want to tell you something. Why did you tell me that? It's ruined now. Pick me up. I need to speak to you. Let's do something different. I like it like that. Thank you for this. It's a load on my back. I want it removed. Call me any time for anything. Can you come and pick me up? Pick me up, put me down. Rest my head. Gentle caress, butterfly kiss. Take me anywhere. Anywhere where the wind may blow. Where I feel the warmth on my face. The whisper of the breeze. The promise of things to come. Pick me up. Envelope me in your arms. Twirl me round. Gazing into my eyes. Pick me up. Put me down gently with care, not with a thud in the air or a prod to the heart. Pick me up till death do us part. And that was my second poem. Now, going over it a bit weird. We're not going over, I've never said how much time I'm going to take. Some lives I notice take slightly longer than others, so if you're still with me, fabulous. It's that part in the live, guys, where, yeah, I've got my routine, my structure, and I have my song. Now, I'm going to explain to you, this particular group who sang this song, they're actually, one of their singles is one of the first singles, well, it is the first one I ever bought. And so that says a lot about me and my era and all the rest of it. But I'll be honest with you, the other day I was driving the car, and for all sorts of reasons, the way I'll describe it, and it probably means lots of people rather than me verbalising words, I literally felt, and I'll do this, bleh. That's the way I'll describe it. I felt there. And so it was like, when I do that, I'm laughing, but it felt a bit crap, a bit just flat, actually, and a little bit, So, I don't know, I'm describing this to you, and it didn't feel funny at the time, but I'm saying it sort of seems funny, but it wasn't at the time. Anyway, so I'm driving my car, and the music's on, obviously really low, and I suddenly catch something in the background, and something catches me, like literally, and I turn this music up, and as I'm sure you're all aware, music and particular songs, I do believe, have amazing power, not only to transport us back to somewhere, but I think also to just lift our energy. I mean, I love songs as well, personally. I mean, I love all sorts of music and songs, right? I love ones also that, you know, create energy, and even better if you can move along to them as well. But this one in particular, I went from feeling quite And I'd felt that way. It was when I was driving back from Walking Willow one of the mornings, the morning musings. So I'd already felt a bit heavy going, and the walk felt a bit laboured, and I was like, ugh. Anyway, so this song came on. I blasted it, a thing I love about in the car. I went, wing! It didn't matter, didn't have to care, because it was just blasting. And so, yeah, and it really it lifted me, to be frank. It just made me go bing, because it transported me. I can't give you the actual, where it transported me, but on a level of physicality, of feeling, of energy, it transported somewhere. So Kelly, I love the song. Well, you ain't even heard it yet, but I hope you do. I'm sure some people will recognise it as soon as it comes on. So you ready, guys? Big build up here. You're probably going to be really disappointed now. Not. So, ready? Bum 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 bum. Back in '68 in a sweaty club. Oh, Gino. Before Jim's machine and a rock steady rub. Oh, Gino, on a night when flowers did suit my shoes, after a week of flunking and bunking school, the lowest head in the crowd that night, just practicing steps and keeping out of the fight. Academic inspiration, you gave me none, but you were Michael the lover, the fighter that won. But now just look at me, I'm looking down at you. No, I'm not being flash, it's what I'm built to do. The man that took the stage's tail was swinging high. Oh, Gino, this man was my bombers, my Dexys, my high. Oh, Gino, the crowd, they all hailed you and chanted your name, but they never knew like we knew, me and you were the same. And now you're all over, your song is to tame. You fed me, you bred me, I'll remember your name. Academic inspiration, you gave me none. You were Michael the lover, the fighter that won. But now just look at me, I'm looking down at you. No, I'm not being flash, it's what I'm built to do. Bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Gino, oh Gino, oh Gino. Bum 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 bum. Oh, Gino. Oh, I feel really. That's what really fantastic tunes that just connect you to something really do for you. Oh, thank you guys. There's so much like love and woohoo and hearts and lots of lovely things. So thank you. It really means a lot. Just out of interest, the first single I ever bought was actually Typically Come and Eileen by Dexys. That was my first ever single. Just thought I'd share that moment. So, Cool, this one's been a bit long, guys. I hope you're okay with it. I'm like 45 minutes. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for staying with me. I also really sort of send lots of love and hugs to those who may be joining the live at some other point. I really hope that the sharing, the theme, Courage to Mourn, offers people something. The poems may, and maybe the song may, who's to know. Oh, Karen, you're lovely. I love you. We love it. We want more. Hey. Listen, guys, thank you. Love you hearts, and have a fantastic rest of the night, because you know I'm not going to go and now into the week, because we still have the rest of the evening to go yet. So who knows what's abound for people. But moving into the week, have a fantastic time. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself some real good sort of, I'm doing this, you know, good sort of affirmations, hugs. Be kind to yourself. That's really important. So lots of love, lots of hugs. And I shall speak to you later, guys. Love you lots. Bye. Bye.